Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name's Jackie and today we're going to be looking at invoice payments within Sage 50 accounts. Okay, so invoice payments is a feature that's going to allow you to take payments within your software from your invoicing module. So today's session should last around 30 minutes. We've got a mix of a couple of videos and we also have a little bit of live demonstration towards the end as well today. So just going to start off with the housekeeping first of all. So first of all, you'll notice that you've been placed on mute. That just means you can't speak to me directly today. If you do have any questions, you are more than welcome to send them across to me throughout the session. So use the questions panel there. You can access that by using the icon that looks like a speech bubble with the question mark in the middle, and that will allow you to submit your questions across to myself. It is just myself today, so I will try and address them where possible during the webinar. If not, we will address them at the end of the session. There is a handout for today's session, so if you want to take a copy of that, please do so. That is the icon. It looks like a document with the folded corner, and you can take a copy of that before we end the session today. Okay, so what we're going to go through today, first of all, is what are invoice payments, so giving you a bit of detail about what this can actually do for you. And then I've got some slides on setting up invoice payments and a short video to show you that process. I'm going to show you some of the standard layouts that come with the software that allow you to add a pay now option. And then we're going to show you the actual payment of invoices. So what it looks like when a customer receives that invoice with that pay now option on. And then we'll quickly talk about syncing invoice payments at the end of the session there. So like I say, please do submit your questions throughout. Okay, so first of all, we'll start with what are invoice payments. So using invoice payments, it allows you to request and receive payments from a customer using a card, using either Stripe or PayPal. It allows you to add an option onto your statements or onto your invoices that gives you a pay now option. So when you email this to your customer, they have a link to make the payment there and then. But what's also great about this is that you do have the option to also download those transactions automatically. So again, not only does it make the payment for you or take that payment, it allows you to sort of eliminate some of the transactions that you'll need to post in the software. So it helps customers to make payments quicker because it doesn't mean they have to go away, find their banking details and create a payment for you. They can literally make the payment there and then by clicking on the option on the layout. Now, like I said earlier, there are some standard layouts in the software that have this pay now option, which will become available once you've activated invoice payments. And it is also possible for you, I'm just going to reshare the screen there, apologies, it's like issue there with the screen sharing. Okay, so with invoice payments, it basically allows you to take part payments. You can also make part payments with a discount as well. So if there's a prompt payment discount applied to a customer and they're making the payment within the agreed time scale, then it will also take that into account as well. I was just saying there earlier, you can also add this onto custom layouts as well. So if you're already using a customized layout with your own logo and it's already been set up, it is also possible to add that pay now option onto a custom layout as well. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at invoice payments, how to set that up. So it is a connected service. So connected services is probably something you've heard us mention a lot over the last few months. So other examples of connected services are things like remote data access and bank feeds. And all that means is to access this, you will need to set up with your Sage account. So you may already have a Sage account if you've used remote data access or bank feeds. So you need to set up, or you either need to log in using your Sage account or set up a Sage account during the setup process for invoice payments. And it is quite a straightforward setup process. It's not too tricky, which you'll see in just a moment. And once activated, you do need to select which one you want to connect to, whether that's PayPal or Stripe. So it is always advisable, if you're going to set this up, have your Stripe and PayPal credentials to hand so that you can access those easily and get them entered into the setup process. Once you're connected to PayPal or Stripe, you will be required to set up two nominal codes and specify which nominal codes you wish to use. One is a dedicated bank account that you're going to use for Stripe transactions. So you might need to set up a separate bank account for Stripe transactions, and also a fees nominal code. So when you download transactions from the software, if there are any fees incurred, you will also need to post those to a particular nominal code. Normally sits in the overheads area of your software. Also, if there are any fees, you need to specify the tax code that you wish it to use as well. Okay, so I'm going to show a very quick demo now of what that setup process looks like. So you get an idea now of what that process will look like if you do decide to go ahead with invoice payments. So I'm just going to start this first video. It's around 2 minutes long. Like I say, it's not an overly complicated process. It's just to show you step by step what's expected when you set up.
Activation of invoice payments can be made through apps and add-ons and by clicking on Get Started, or via settings and invoice payments on version 28.1 and below, or via connected services and invoice payments on version 29 and above. Once you have clicked on Let's Get Started, you then need to connect to your Sage account. If you've not yet set up a Sage account or used a connected service such as remote data access, then you will be given the option to create an account. Once connected to your Sage account, you can begin setting up invoice payments by linking with your payment provider. In this example, we're going to connect with Stripe. Click Learn More and then the option to connect. Enter the email address you've used for your Stripe account and select Continue. This may ask you for further verification information to prove your identity prior to connecting. Once connected to your payments provider, you'll need to complete the invoice payments configuration. Here you can choose or create a bank account to represent the Stripe or PayPal account. You can select a nominal code to be used for Stripe or PayPal fees, and the tax code you wish to be used for any associated fees. You're now ready to start using invoice payments, and you'll be able to access the invoice payments layouts.
Okay, so I just wanted to show you where you can activate that again, because it does differ on the version that you're using. But if you're on 29 and above, what you'll find is it is now within connected services, and you'll have the option for invoice payments there. It is also within apps and add-ons, and I do want to show you this because this is where you can find out more information. So one of the key questions we do get around this is, what is the cost involved with using this? So we log on to apps and add-ons, and in here we find invoice payments. There we go, invoice payments. So it's asking me to manage the connection here on this particular one, but within here on your data set, which I'll show you in a second on a slightly different data set, this is where it gives you lots of information around what invoice payments does. There's videos in there, but what it also does is it confirms that there's no cost from Sage for using invoice payments. The only costs that will be incurred are those that are charged by either Stripe or PayPal. So apps and add-ons go into Sage invoice payments, and this window will look slightly different. I will get a different company to just show you that towards the end there. Obviously mine has been activated, which is now where it's showing me slightly different information because it is allowing me to access things like my settings, etc. But on a new company where you haven't set this up, it actually gives you the link into setting invoice payments up. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the slides for a moment. Apologies for the slow transitions today. We have to use a slightly different system. With it being a payment system, we have to make sure that no live transactions are put through. So it just makes it a little bit more complicated there. Okay, so I'm just going to share the screen again there. That should be with you now. Just double check that's all sharing. There we go. Okay, so once you've activated Invoice Payments, what that means is you have some new layouts that are accessible. So they will have been there all along, but they'll then be accessible once you've activated Invoice Payments. So you'll be able to actually use those. And they are the ones that refer to with Sage Invoice Payments or Pay by Elevon. Now, Pay by Elevon is a slightly different process. It works on a very similar basis. It does take payments using a Pay Now option, but the setup for that is slightly different. But the same layouts can be used for that. So that's where you can see it says both there. So when you use these layouts, apologies, I'll just go back a step there. When you use these layouts, the Pay Now option is on there automatically. So again, I'm just going to very quickly jump back onto my demo data there, just so I can show you these layouts so you can have a quick look at these. So it's when you're using the invoices and credits feature. So I'm just going to unpause the screen again there. You can see I'm in invoices and credits here at the moment. And when I go into print, I get my list of all the layouts that are available. And I've added this one as a favorite. Okay, so it's an email invoice, so it's designed to be emailed. And when we generate that, although this is very basic, at the bottom, you can see that the Pay Now option has been added, and also with an explanation about what that Pay Now option is. So that would go off to your customer, and your customer will receive that, and hopefully they will click on that straight away and just decide to get that payment made immediately, which means you've got more cash to inject back into your business straight away. Now, this is where the second demonstration comes in, because the second demonstration is going to show a payment going through, and it's just going to show you some of those differences. So if you do have things like prompt payment discount on a particular customer's record and they're paying within that timescale, how that applies that for you. So I'm just going to play the second video, and then we'll be back for a bit more of a demonstration there for you.
Invoice Payments is a great feature for providing online payment links on invoices for your customers when using Stripe or PayPal. This makes the process quick and easy for your customers to pay on time. And when Invoice Payments is activated, you can email the invoice to your customers with an integrated Pay Now button. Invoices can be emailed directly from the Invoices window if you've set up the default layout to one including the integrated link. Or you can generate the preview and select the email invoice with Invoice Payments option. From here you can preview or send to your customer via email. When your customer receives the email invoice, they can use the Pay Now option at the bottom of the invoice to make an instant payment direct to your Stripe or PayPal account. These transactions can then be downloaded directly from your provider into your data and allocated to the invoice they relate to. In version 29, there have been improvements to Invoice Payments to allow partial payments of invoices and to account for any settlement discount applied. Now, when a customer selects the Pay Now button, they have the option to pay the invoice in full or to make a partial payment. Once the part payment is made, the confirmation demonstrates the invoice value and the amount still due. If the customer was to click on the Pay Now option again, then only the remaining value would be displayed under the full amount. However, there is still the option to make a further part payment. Now let's take a look at what this looks like in Sage 50 accounts after syncing with Invoice Payments. As you can see, the sales receipt has been created for the part payment and a bank payment for the related fees involved. In addition, Invoice Payments can now account for settlement discount if you've entered this into the customer records within the Credit Control tab. When the Pay Now option is selected within the settlement discount period, the discount is automatically applied to the transaction. As you can see, after the transaction is downloaded from Invoice Payments, the sales receipt is posted, and we have 2 sales credit notes, one for each item line of the invoice. And again, we have the bank payment for the related fees. Finally, settlement discount is only applied when the invoice is paid in full. If you opt to part pay, no settlement discount is deducted. When you go back in to pay off the remainder of the invoice, again you can see the settlement discount is no longer showing. Sage 50 Accounts synchronises with the invoice payment service 3 times a day, and any transactions will automatically post into your accounts. You can, however, also manually sync your data. You can do this in either Settings and Invoice Payments, or Connected Services and Invoice Payments, depending on your version. Within here, you can view any failed transactions and also manually sync the data. When Invoice Payments transactions are downloaded, it will automatically allocate the payment to the invoice, therefore processing a sales receipt transaction. A failed transaction is where the transaction has not been matched to the original invoice. The details will explain why a transaction has failed, in this case due to the original invoice not being updated to the ledgers. This transaction will be downloaded as a payment on account and then can be manually allocated.
Okay, so that basically showed the process from the customer receiving the invoice, what that's going to look at their end, and also the implications if they have a prompt payment discount applied and they maybe try to make a part payment. So they can still make a part payment, and that was only introduced in version 29 and above. So if they want to make that part payment, they can, and next time they click on the link, that will be updated with the new balance reflecting that part payment that has been made. Okay, so what I just wanted to show you, I mentioned earlier about the standard layouts that have invoice payment pay now options on, is how to add onto a custom layout. So it's quite a simple fix when you know how and when you know where to go for this. So for example, if you've already got your customized layout, what you can do is you can highlight it from the list. So when you've gone into invoices and gone to print, find the layout that you want to amend and go to edit. Now what this does is it launches Report Designer, which has just launched on the other screen. So we'll just drag this across. And I think sometimes when you go into Report Designer, it can look a little bit daunting, but we're not going to be doing anything too complicated on here. The first thing we are going to do is just go into Report and Report Properties and just change the name slightly. So what I'm just going to call it is Jackie Test with Invoice Payments. And that just means that's saving it as a separate layout for me. So it's going to have that name and it's going to be easier to locate. To add that on, what we need to do, that Pay Now option, is we just need to go to Add Pay Now button. And although it doesn't look like it's doing anything, if we scroll to the bottom, you'll see that that Pay Now button has been added. So I just needed to click on it once. When I was first exploring this, I was thinking it wasn't doing anything. Clicking on it once adds the button and also the Pay Now message that will appear automatically. So it just says Pay Now message at the moment. And then we've got what that will do is it will bring through the text for you. Now what we need to do next is go to File and Save As. And we just need to save that as a slightly different invoice so it doesn't overwrite that standard one that comes with the software. So I am just literally going to leave it as it is and call it copy of the original format there and select save. So once I've saved, when we're back in our layout where we get our choice of layouts, we can scroll through the list to find the one we've just created. There you go. And when I generate that, you can see an idea of what that would look like for the customer, and I'll have the pay now option at the bottom if that's saved correctly for me. There you go. So as I mentioned, it says pay now message on the layout when you're editing it, but it does pull through the full sort of text there for you. So that's how you can add it onto a custom layout. Okay, so we're just going to jump back to the slides. I just need to pause the slides for 1 second there, just so I can get back onto the slides for you. Again, if you've got any questions, please do get those across for us and we'll get those answered for you. Just going to get back onto the slides there for you. So you'll see here on this slide here, I've got that information about adding the pay now option. So you can actually go into Toolbox and do it that way, or there's the option along the top as well. But I have also provided the link to the article on how to do that for you as well. Okay, so the video mentioned there around syncing invoice payments. So invoice payments should automatically sync on your behalf 3 times per day. And that means it will connect with Stripe or PayPal and download those payments for you. So you don't need to go in and then go into customer receipt and process the payment, because that payment will download automatically for you. And that function can be found within connected services and then invoice payments. Now what that will do is, where it can, it will just download them and you will just see them in the software. Okay, what you might find, especially when you're setting it up and you're new to the system, is there might be a few sort of teething issues. And I was a victim of this yesterday as I was refreshing myself on the content there. I did exactly what we said in the video there. So if it's unable to post the transaction, or it's unable to match the transaction to the original invoice, you'll get a window that looks very much like this one. And I've got one to show you in just a second. Now, what it should do, if everything goes smoothly and you've updated your invoice to ledgers, not only does it download the transaction for you, but it also allocates the payment to the invoice for you. Now, what's happened in this case is we've actually sent the invoice to the customer with the pay now option. They've paid so quickly, they've actually missed us. We've missed out the step of, apologies, we've missed out the step there of actually updating the ledgers. Okay, now I did this yesterday. I wondered why I was getting an error. So I haven't actually updated that invoice to ledgers yet. And what that means is it's downloaded it as a payment on account. So let's get back into the demonstration data there so I can show you this. Apologies, like I said, it's a bit of a slow situation there, just trying to swap between the two, but we'll get this uploaded for you. Okay. So I'm just going to go into connected services and then invoice payments. And should just load for me. I'm just checking if it's loaded on the other screen, which it has done. So in this case, I've connected to Stripe. Okay, so it will be very similar if you're on PayPal. And as you can see there, it's giving me the options to sync now. If I wanted to, I can disconnect at any point. So if I find that this isn't working, you do have the option to disconnect. But I'm just going to view the failed transactions here. And what you'll see there is I've got one error here. So what it's just telling me here is it's had to post it as a payment on account rather than actually allocate it to the invoice. So it's telling me here, no matching SI transaction exists for invoice reference to, you must update the invoice to the ledgers. So it's quite clear where we've gone wrong there. So I do quite like the messaging on here because it's quite plain. It does tell you what has gone wrong. So if we just have a quick look at my data, come out of here, I'll pop into invoices. In fact, no, we'll go to transactions, apologies. You can see the 2 transactions downloaded first, and then I updated the ledgers. Okay, so they're not actually married off against one another at the moment, but it's posted a payment on account for the customer, and then it has done a bank payment for the Stripe fees. In this case, that was 40p. So once you've updated to the ledgers, which I have done now, you can then go and manually allocate them. And then all you would need to do is go back into Invoice Payments and then mark that transaction as red, just so it doesn't keep appearing, because it will keep appearing until you resolve it, and it will also prompt you when you start up. So when I go back into failed transactions, what I can just do now that I've dealt with that is tick that one there and then mark it as red so it doesn't keep flagging that up for me. Okay, so that is basically how to sync it. So back to the slides. And I just want to show you what else you can do in terms of extracting that information. So I'm just going to go back onto the slides there, because there are reports that come with this. So once you've set this up, again, I'll just share the screen. Once you've set this up, there will be reports available in the transactions window. Okay, so go into transactions, into reports, then audit trail, and you'll be able to do an audit trail for Sage Invoice Payments, and you can do a detailed report or a detailed landscape report. And that just allows you to reconcile your transactions through Stripe with the transactions that have come through onto Sage if you need to do that. In addition though, what you can also do is you can apply filters onto your data. So I've given two examples of filters in the handout there for you. So one is where the username is Invoice Payments, and the other is where the reference is equal to Stripe. So the username when those transactions are downloaded from Stripe will be apologies, I go back one slide there, Invoice Payments, and then the value in the reference you will have Stripe. So we'll just show you that very quickly. Again, just going to put back onto my demonstration data there. And get the data back up. So I'm just going to go into transactions. Go into transactions there. Apologies, just got a few things coming up there with it being a test environment. So as you can see, the reference here is indicating Stripe, so we can do a filter on that. Or the username for those downloaded transactions is Invoice Payments. So we can also do a filter on that. So I will show you one of them. So I'm going to show you the username. So I'm going to go into filter and I'm going to just change the filter to where username is equal to, and then just type in Invoice Payments. Apply. And that restricts access to everything else, and it only shows us those transactions that have come through from Invoice Payments. Apologies, I will just share the screen again. I'm having a few technical issues with these multiple screens, so I do apologise for that. I'll show you that filter again because I think you may have just missed that one. So I've just popped that filter on at the top there. I will just clear it and do that one again for you. So what I'm going to do is just try and show only those transactions that have a username of Invoice Payments. So I'm going to go to filter, and it's where username is equal to Invoice Payments. Apply, and that just shows you just transactions that have come from Invoice Payments. Okay, so I'm just going to pop back to the slides for the final time there for you. Just minimize that one and get back onto the slides there. So just want to start summarizing now. So if you do have any questions, please do get them over. We'll see if we can get those answered for you. So Invoice Payments is a way of connecting your invoicing to either Stripe or PayPal. And it means that you can get paid quicker because your customers can pay directly from a link in the invoice that you issue to them by email. The transactions can download automatically, and where possible will allocate to the original invoice for you. So again, minimal processing required with this. You can view those failed transactions transactions by going into connected services and invoice payments, and it gives you quite a clear sort of explanation as to why. And then finally, pay now buttons are added to standard layouts. Apologies for the typo on there, but they're added to standard layouts, or they can be added to the custom layouts if you need to. Okay, great question there is, how would you easily find out Stripe and PayPal transaction fees? Now, I'm just wondering if that's to do with what are the fees from Stripe and PayPal. If you bear with me 1 second, what I'm going to do is on my non-live data set, so bear with me, I will get a link for you. So I'm just going to go back into apps and add-ons. I showed you earlier on apps and add-ons once I was connected. This company is not connected to invoice payments. So I'm just going to learn more on here. And in here, there is a section on pricing and fees. Okay, so we do confirm on here that there is no fees that come from Stripe or PayPal. What I'm just going to do, and we'll pop on hold in just a moment and see if I can get any information on that. But normally we do say speak to Stripe or PayPal because they are actually dictated by them. So there are absolutely no fees from Sage, but there will be some from Stripe or PayPal. So that might be something you need to explore, but I will just see if I've got something I can link you to show you that. But I did mention I'd show this page here, so you can see this has got all the information on getting started, shows you how it works. There's a video for you to watch there, and it also goes through some of those things I mentioned there about how you can run reports, etc. Okay, so I'm just going to pop back to the slides there. So that brings us to the end of the session. Please, if you've got any more questions, I'll hang on for a few more moments. I am just going to have a quick look to see if I can find, because we did used to have an article that had a link to Stripe and PayPal, but I just want to check because sometimes these things do get updated. So if you hang on for me, I'll see if I can get that link for you. I'll pop myself on mute for just a few moments, but I will be back before I end the session. So if you are leaving, thank you very much for joining us, but do hang on if you want to have that link, if I can find that for you. Okay, so I have found an article, but it does just link directly to the Stripe website. So I will just bring this across for you so you can quickly see this though. So just unshare or reshare the screen there. So if you go into our help center, click on to sage.co.uk/help. Type in invoice payments, you'll find an article for set up invoice payments, which I'll pop a link in the chat as well for you. In here, it does give you links to Stripe or PayPal, so you would need to speak to Stripe or PayPal, discuss your company and your business needs, because they might have different offers depending on how many transactions you're expecting on a regular basis. So it could be the reason it goes to the website is because it's more of a bespoke, there's a more of a bespoke nature to their offerings. So unfortunately, like I say, we don't have any details on the pricing, just that there's nothing from our end. We are not going to charge you for using this service. What I'll do is I will just pop that into the chat for you, that link there, so you can get hold of that, because there might be a chat or something, a feature like that for you. So I'll just pop that into your question there. Okay, so without any further questions, it's just for me to say there are more webinars coming. We have webinars again continuing tomorrow. Tomorrow we're looking at transactions, VAT corrections in particular, and we'll be continuing our corrections next week. So corrections across all of the transaction types. We're also looking at the impact on bank fees and bank reconciliation later on the month, and also things like invoicing orders as well. So to get onto the webinars, it's sage.co.uk/webinars, and that will take you to our webinar homepage. Select the correct product from the list. So I'm just going to go into here, and you'll be able to see all of our upcoming registrations. Like I said, we've got a huge series on corrections, but beyond that, we've got more on 2FA, running year end, company archives. The list really does go on. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end, just slightly over due to the technical issue, so I do apologise for that. So thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate you joining us on this session. We hope you will see us on another session really soon. But for now, thank you very much. Take care, everyone.